What's going on? It's your boy, DameSmiff, and so we're here today to talk about craziness and like artists getting all weird and things like that on the internet and what that really means. So if you're interested in that, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You know the rules. Make sure you do what you need to do to affect the algorithm. But what we are talking about is not necessarily a specific topic, but kind of like my thoughts on like artists ranting and like artists giving their opinions that are like really, really personal to them and how it can affect the things you're trying to do as a musician and how it can affect the things that honestly should be important to you as a musician. So let's think about different topics we could rant about, right? I've seen musicians rant about like the brands of drum heads. Like they believe one drum head is superior to another, right? I've seen arguments from religion to politics and things like that. Some things about dating and all kinds of different things, right? And so I think for a lot of artists, the key thing to remember is that you're now, as we talked about last time, a manufacturing company, damn near. Like you are a corporation when it comes to how you communicate with your fans, how you communicate with the people around you, and how you communicate with yourself. And so when you think about these things, you want to really be intentional on how you project these things into the space. So like I have opinions on maybe like I don't know, some celebrity that you may completely disagree with, right? And that's cool. But the thing is that important for me as a musician, like to have that conversation with you and to really put that in the forefront and to shine a light on that. I think in my opinion, no, I don't think it's important to kind of put that in your face and to show you what I'm into or like what I like and things like that. I think it's more important that you, if you're here for music, like if you're really here to hear how I play an instrument or what my thoughts are on a record or to hear my voice on a song, right? I think it's more important that that's what I focus on. But if you do want to have these things, I think there needs to be a platform for that that, may be different or in a different space, different stage. And I think what happens for a lot of artists today, because we are now kind of like our own corporations, like we are our own things now. Like we like if you start uploading on TikTok and you go viral, you're basically a company now. Like by like society standards, you're a brand and like you can take that and do something with it. And so what I think artists are running into is there isn't a separation for them, at least mentally, about how they feel about the world and why the world notices them. Like, I think the reason the world notices you are for different reasons, especially if you're on the internet. Like, if you're just out and about in life, it's kind of obvious. Like, if you don't have an Instagram and people always walk up to you and ask you to play the guitar, we pretty much know you as the guitar guy, right? But if people are walking up to you and they want to know your opinion on like the latest rapper news and you're a rapper, there's some confusion there. And if you don't feel like there is, that's kind of what I'm talking about. If you don't notice that people walk up to you constantly and don't talk about music with you, then they may not really know or care that you do music, right? And this is something I had to get used to. Like, I went to school for music really young and then just was in school for a long time and then got out into the real world and started performing. And I was like, oh, y'all really like don't know what's going on. Like I have to like do this to like kind of teach y'all what's going on. And I see other YouTubers and things like that and podcasters and there's definitely schools out there that teach you music, but the standard for like, for example, when people say I know Spanish, right? There's a certain speed, there's a certain vocabulary you expect them to have when someone says, I can speak Spanish, right? So when I hear I play an instrument or I create music or I make music, there's a certain like standard I have in my head that's not the same for everybody else, right? And so I had to get used to that. I had to get used to like, oh shit, like you say you play music, but you do like two songs, or you only play at church, or like you really only play one style of music. You don't really do much compared to like what you could be doing as an individual, right? And so having ideas like that can be almost offensive if you put that out in front of people. So you just kind of play your music. You just play your music with them, and you just do your thing. I think what's going to be important going forward for many musicians, especially the younger crowds getting into like marching band and things like that, is going to be the fact that they're going to have to individually, like if you have a marching band now of like 40 kids, 30 kids, each one of them can be their own brand. And I think that can be kind of overwhelming for like a young artist, or like an artist who, when I say young, I don't mean like age. And when I say like a marching band, I mean like you can think of college, you can think of high school, but marching bands can be like you can join the army marching band, and there are certain things that you can do with that opportunity, with those skills that you can take around the world, that I think you should be aware of as a musician, that are kind of around music, that are really, really helpful and beneficial to you and beneficial to others. And I think once you can see these things, it can kind of put a little more validity in your choices as a musician. So that's why it's key to kind of understand when you see people frustrated as musicians and as artists, to pay attention to what they're frustrated about, right? Like I've had my frustrations as a musician, but the only real frustration I've had was for other musicians, and meaning that that was the one that I put in your face, meaning like you could find posts about me talking about the music industry in terms of like how we respect the art, and how we respect the as far as the payment of respect and how it really goes. So how I explained that in most posts was that you would see many artists playing on the street, just busking like in your city, and they would be playing music that you would think, oh, you need to be on stage and things like that. And you'd walk up to them and you'd say, hey, do you have like a business card? And they're like, yeah. And they hand you a business card, and they've got like a cajillion followers on TikTok or a bunch of subscribers on YouTube. And you're like, okay, so why are you playing on the street? There's a disconnect there, right? And that was the issue I had. And I really didn't lay it on anybody else but musicians. I was like, there's a problem with what we're valuing as musicians and how we're going to be packaging ourselves going forward. And it kind of leads into what I'm saying, in that we think that because we have, a certain morality or a certain cool thing to say, like for example, there could be a musician that feels like they're really cool because they're doing what I'm doing right now, like talking on this microphone. But in reality, don't stand anywhere near the greatest musicians in the world as far as doing this, right? Because this doesn't matter when it comes to music. And I think as young musicians, we miss that when we just start working and we just start, putting crap up on the wall and just throwing music out there. We forget like, oh shit, this is really like supposed to build the house that I call the career around it. And so personally, when I learned that, I took kind of like a more intentional step back from creating so rapidly, and then creating in more intentional ways. As as far as what I've tried to do, I tried to create different styles of content around music. So now my music is utilized in different formats and different, things, in different creative mediums, like videos, maybe like collaborative things with other artists and things like that. So I would use my skills that way. I would try to play instruments and write and use my vocal talents and things like that in different ways. That way, I can kind of build bricks around my name and my skill, and still explore all these different cool things that I'm into, and not have to deviate from giving you guys music at the end of the day. Like I can go get on a piano and do what I want to do, but is it going to get me to the destination I'm trying to get to as far as an artist? And for you, that could be very, very different than whatever it could be for me. For you, it can be, I just want to be a, very popular guy in my town that maybe teaches a few students some instruments, and I raise my family with my income. That could be very, 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 very reasonable for a lot of people. The thing is how you get there. Because you could be in a small town of like, 1,000 people, and you want to play the trumpet. So it's like, what are we gonna do with that? You know, what are we gonna do with the greatest trumpeter in Oklahoma? Like, how are we gonna make you stand out and give you a living? You know, and so it can happen, but what does it look like? Like, you're not gonna have a career that looks like a rapper. You may have a career that looks more like a pastor in reality. But now you got to figure out how you fit into that equation and get the things you want as an artist. And this goes back to our previous talks about like thinking about the end of your career, like thinking about like, all right, if I'm like 67 years old, the fuck am I doing when I'm 67 years old? Like, I get out of bed and I do what, you know? And so if you don't have that in mind at 27, 37, 47, then by the time you get there, it's going to feel like, oh shit, I need to play some catch up. And it's going to be easy for you to figure out what to do. It's going to be hard to apply it and stick to it. And that's why I think you should get to it young. For me, I got to it around like my mid 20s. And it was when I started to kind of like really leave home and like go see like, oh shit, this is how other musicians move and like this is how they make things shake. You see people like, you know, just getting things done, doing business, getting it done. And it's inspiring to kind of like be like, okay, cool, this is how this works. And then you kind of bring it home to your headquarters. That's key. You got to have that first brick to build off of. And so you bring it back home, you start to apply the things you learned and things like that. And you pay attention to older musicians better. And then they notice you pay attention. They reward you for it sometimes. You know, maybe you get some free studio time. Maybe you get, you know, some connections to cool artists. Maybe you get some benefits in the hotel rooms, maybe some extra snacks backstage. Who knows, you know? So keep this in mind. If this was helpful to you, let me know. Remember, you're not crazy. Stay crazy. We got this. But if you enjoyed this, like, share, and subscribe. We're gonna make more videos like this. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Let's go.